Hi, I'm Rob.
And I'm Rob.
And this is Ask Rob and Rob.
Welcome to Ask Rob and Rob. It's that time again. We've got more questions and more answers coming up. We've got a couple of really interesting ones this week. So we're not going to leave you waiting long till you can hear those. But it is worth, first of all, giving you a quick reminder of how to send in your own wonderful question.
Yes, you can go to our lovely shiny website, propertyhub.net/ask, and leave a message there. Or you can call 013 808 00035 and you will get to that very special voicemail.
Okay, let's hear our first question. This one is from Simon.
Hey, Rob and Rob. How's it going? Love the podcast. It's Simon from East London. Been toiling with whether to sell up our one and only buy-to-let due to interest rate rises. It'll just about wash its own face, but we're going to make maybe 50 quid profit a month on that. My mortgage is coming up soon and trying to decide whether to do a quick sale and just pull out the equity, which realistically we could probably get away with about 100 grand, and then think about investing up north or somewhere more lucrative with the rates. So perhaps if you could give some advice, that would be really useful. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Simon, tough one. Really difficult. So if I could just click my fingers and have it done, then I would probably sell the property and go and rebuy elsewhere. Why would I do that? Because I believe the investment case is stronger over the coming years elsewhere in the country in all respects, pretty much. So for a start, yields are higher outside London. Also, when you're going and rebuying, you're rebuying based at today's mortgage rates. So if it works today, you can be confident that it will continue to work in the future. And growth potential, I believe, is stronger outside London than the years ahead, purely because affordability is so much better. There's far more room for prices to move up. Or conversely, if you're looking at the pressures on the market, far less reason for prices to move down. That's what I would do if I could just snap my fingers and have it done. But of course, it's not that simple, because you need to actually sell the property and you don't know what price you're going to be able to sell it for. You don't know how long the property is going to be potentially sitting empty for. If that is, you decide to bring a tenancy in the end to sell it with vacant possession and have the largest possible market. You're also going to have capital gains tax to pay, presumably. And when you rebuy property, you're going to have stamp duty to pay. And you're going to need to go through a whole lot of hassle, and you're not going to know for however many years whether that turned out to be the right move or not. So I can't, in all honesty, say that I would do in practice what I said I would do in theory. I don't know. Maybe I would, maybe I wouldn't. And the reason I say that, Simon, is I think it's all very well sort of saying, oh yeah, here's what you should do. But I think it's important to recognise that I wouldn't necessarily do that. And what's optimal on paper isn't always the thing that you're comfortable doing. And I think in the end, if you're investing for the very long term, then both options will work out fine. I think being outside London will work out better over the next, say, 5 years than being inside London. But will it be enough to compensate for all the costs that you've incurred in doing that? Hard to say. But even being in London will be fine. Because, okay, you're only making £50 profit to start with, but you'd expect rents to go up over time. And you probably expect that mortgage rates are somewhere near a peak at the moment. So mortgage rates might come down as well. And of course, even if the growth potential is higher elsewhere, you'll still get some kind of growth in London. So I think ultimately it might not feel like it, but both options are good. So don't feel like you have to do a certain thing, but that's my take on it. And I hope you find that helpful.
Well, there you go, Simon. Next up, we've got Tyrone. Let's see if I can be just as helpful as Rob D.
Hi, Rob and Rob. It's Tyrone here. Just want to start off by saying thank you very much for all the great content you put out. I've been listening to this for a number of years and it's been fantastic and just keeps getting better. My question was around the future property wealth. So something that, Rob, you mentioned, you're focused on capital appreciation and long-term growth for future wealth for you and your family. My question is, how do you manifest this? Because unless you take a loan or you sell that property, the wealth is just locked in the property, but you actually can't access it. So is your idea that you would be selling or taking a loan to live off that wealth? Or is it actually that you pay it down over time and the rent you get actually improves and that's what you'll be living on? It'd be great just to understand a little bit more about this concept of your strategy and long-term appreciation and long-term value. Thanks a lot. Keep up the great work. And thanks again.
Tyrone, thank you. I love this question because this is why we do Ask Rob and Rob, because it helps us answer questions that not are only just going to help you as an individual, but help so many others, because you're looking at your property portfolio in a different way to how most people will assess it. Because over time, you will accumulate growth in your portfolio. And most people think, okay, if I've got a lot of equity sitting in my portfolio, then my only option is to sell. But you've identified in your question that there is potentially another option to access that wealth, which is to take out a mortgage on that property because you will have equity and then live off that loan instead. Of course, the third option is that you don't need it. You've built up such a big rent roll that you can live off that as well, and you can pass it on to future generations. They're all on the table. You know, the great thing is you don't need to decide today. And I can't tell you what I'm going to do either. I can tell you, though, how I will assess it in the future. So if in the future, when I want to access some of the wealth in my portfolio, interest rates are super low, like we've seen in years gone by, then I will almost certainly take it out in the form of a loan or an equity release. And let me explain why, because the why is the most important part here. If interest rates are, say, a couple of percent, maybe 3%, whatever, and I can get a long-term fix in them, say a 10-year, then I will be all over that, because that is cheap money, super cheap money, especially if the rent on my properties are higher than that mortgage, which they almost certainly will be if rates are that low. So if I'm making a 5-6% return on my properties and I can take a loan out for half that amount and fix it for a long time, that is very, very cheap money. And I can keep those assets. Those assets will continue to bring in rent. They'll continue to grow in value. But I've then also got cheap money to utilize. And it costs me next to nothing. Well, actually nothing, because my rent's going to pay for it, to access that wealth. Now, most people will not consider that as an option, but it is a very good option for those people who find themselves in that position. So if money is cheap when I come to a point that I want to take out some of that wealth from the portfolio, then that's what I will do. Now, if we have higher interest rates, which we have at the moment, and money isn't as cheap, then I would possibly either wait for it to become cheap again, sell the property, or just live off the rent. I've got no problem with selling properties in the future. I've done this for a reason. And at some point, I may want to access some of that wealth and take advantage of it. I don't know. Life's a funny old thing, and I don't know what I'm going to be doing in 10, 20 years' time. So I can't say for certain what I'm going to do. I may not sell any at all and just use the rent. But that's the beautiful thing about property. If you're in it for the long term, it gives you options. And sometimes market conditions like low interest rates give you additional options. So I wouldn't overthink it too much now, Tyrone. It's great that it's on your radar, but when the time comes, then you can make the best decision. But hopefully that gives you a bit of a framework for how to think about it when you eventually reach that place. So thank you for your questions and thank you for listening. We'll be back on Thursday with the Property Podcast and of course back next week with Ask Rob and Rob. So until then, take care, have fun, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.